As much as I believe a city like Seattle, Chicago, Portland, LA could absolutely benefit from the feds coming here and inundating our streets to improve things, I think it's a slippery slope. I want our leaders to want the help. I want our leaders to understand that they need the help. And I want them to ask for the help. Are they going to do that? Of course not, because what did we say in the last segment? They would literally rather let people die than work with Donald Trump on anything. That's the truth. So the mayor of Chicago, Brandon Johnson, I just could not get over this clip because it proves the point that I'm just making. So he's on Morning Joe on MSNBC. And I think they ask a good question, which is like, okay, you've had the highest murder rate for 13 years in a row in any city in the United States. So could you maybe benefit from a little bit of help on the streets?
Do you believe that the streets of Chicago would be safer if there were more uniformed police officers on the streets of Chicago?
I believe the city of Chicago and cities across America would be safer if we actually had, affordable housing. Look,
okay,
I'm not saying
that's not the question I asked. My question is, and I just need a yes or a no, do you believe the streets of Chicago would be safer if you got all of those other extraordinary programs put back into place, which do have a history of being successful, if that's complemented by having 5,000 more cops on the streets of Chicago?
I don't believe that we should narrow it down to just police officers, Joe, is what I'm saying. That is an antiquated approach. I'm saying we've invested in detectives.
Mr. Mayor, are you hearing what I'm saying? I'm agreeing with you that all of these other social programs are extraordinarily important. I just need a yes or a no, and then this will be the last time I ask. If you get all of those other social programs that 800 million that New York City does, Los Angeles, other people do with great success, would an additional 5,000 cops on the streets in Chicago help complement those programs to make Chicago safer?
Look, we are working hard to make sure that our police department is fully supported. I don't believe that just simply putting out an arbitrary number around police officers is the answer.
Oh, my gosh. He knows he can't say no, right? Because he'd look even dumber than he just looked right there. I mean, of course, having 5,000 additional police officers would make the community safer. And I'm willing to bet that if you polled Chicagoans, they would agree with that sentiment. And then you can't say yes, because then people would say, okay, then why not let Donald Trump come help? And he doesn't have a good answer for that. It's just insane. And then he has a press conference where he's talking about, and look, it's not a new sentiment from the left that, we can't arrest our way out of crime. And there's some slivers of truth to that, but it doesn't mean you can't try, right? And it doesn't mean you shouldn't arrest people who are committing crimes. But, the point about we need sort of a holistic approach to what is causing in Chicago, specifically young black men to kill each other at these just insane rates, et cetera. And that's what even on Morning Joe they're trying to get across is we're not saying only 5,000 new cops. We're saying, we have to do all these other things, but would that not help? So it's not we can't arrest our way out of crime, but this idea, and he repeats in this press conference, that, we can't bolster policing because that just leads to more racism.
We cannot incarcerate our way out of violence. We've already tried that. And we've ended up with the largest prison population in the world without solving the problems of crime and violence. The addiction on jails and incarceration in this country, we have moved past that. It is racist, it is immoral, it is unholy, and it is not the way to drive violence down.
Okay, so what is the way to drive violence down? Because clearly you're not doing it. So your answer is to do nothing? Your answer is to ignore crime? It literally, just crime's happening, but let's not arrest them because that would be racist and we can't put people in prison. I can promise you mass incarceration or whatever it is, on certain drug crimes I don't necessarily agree with, but I'll tell you what it didn't do. It didn't make communities less safe. It didn't do that. And not putting them in prison certainly would make communities less safe. So it's just this insane, they want to keep repeating these regurgitated lines that they've been using for years and years. We can't arrest our way out of crime. We can't arrest our way out of crime. So we're not going to do that. We're going to try other things. Well, what you're trying isn't working. So let's at least go back to something that we know for sure will get criminals off the streets. Well, you come up with a plan that you think will work, okay? To reduce crime. We always go back to this racist element. And it's hard because I don't want to couch my opinion on this. Were there times where people were thrown in jail because of the color of their skin in the country? Of course. Nobody is denying that. But we are well past those times now. And the reason there's a disproportionate number of people of color who are incarcerated in this country is because they're committing a disproportionate amount of crime. That's just the truth. So if you want to deal with that real simple truth, let's talk about why. Let's talk about some of the economic factors, some of the cultural factors that contribute to that. But you don't want to have those conversations. So you just want to dismiss all of this as racist and just continue to, you know what's more racist than that? Just looking the other way while young black men die in pools of blood on the streets of the city that you're supposed to protect and represent. That's far more racist. It's insane stuff. And so then I hear an answer like that, and I'm really struggling internally because I don't agree with the Trump administration coming into cities besides Washington, D.C. and taking over police departments. Just fundamentally, I don't agree with that. But then you hear something so dumb like this, and that you see that we have leaders who are willing to let people die instead of work with Donald Trump. And then I'm like, okay, well, maybe some sort of extraordinary measure is warranted, but it's such a slippery slope. So I really struggle with this one because I just don't see these blue states learning any sort of lessons, being willing to put their egos aside to save lives, whether it's from gang violence or drugs or, truck drivers who can't speak English. It's insane.